Hello there, Hero Club. I am Wheelchair21, one of the co-founders of the site and its current editor-in-chief. Along with me hosting this interesting Power Rangers interview is none other than my original co-founder out of the four, Project RDM.
Oh, hey, this is the first time I'm on camera. Hi, guys.
Yeah, this is the first time you've been on camera since you stopped making YouTube videos in like 2014. And joining us for this really interesting Power Rangers interview is none other than Campbell Cooley himself, from pretty much the Disney era all the way to the current Hasbro era.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you. As people are wondering, since this interview will most likely be put up before Beast Morphers ends, no, there are no spoilers. But we politely asked Mr. Cooley, Campbell, to come back at a later date, and we can possibly discuss not just in-depth explanations or having to hide stuff regarding spoilers within Beast Morphers, but other seasons he's worked on too. And that was the gist of it, because we realized we can't ask him all this technical stuff alongside all of this just trivial stuff, and just asking him about his opinions on Power Rangers, his thoughts on his career, and etc. We've you need two different interviews. It's like, this man's been in like 8+ seasons of Power Rangers, being a Monster of the Week or a main villain. So it's like we gotta split it up. There's too much to cover.
Fair enough.
The only spoiler we can say, it's going to be good.
Yes.
Oh.
It's going to be good.
One of the best endings ever.
Or my other favorite spoiler, there's Megazords. There's Morphers. That's all I can say. They're Power Rangers. Well, yeah. That's so. As per usual with our interviews, they're always normally conducted on video, so you'll be seeing us, and our editor will have a nightmare editing this. Most likely you, Ryan. I know you're watching this right now and editing. Anyways, to begin, what do you attribute to being your inspiration for wanting to become an actor, and where did you get your education?
Right. The short version of that story is I kind of fell into it. I was one of these children who just didn't really know what they wanted to be when they grew up. I was interested in everything. I was just constantly, interested in this, and then suddenly I was interested in that. I was just being pulled in all these different directions. And then by the time I got to going to university, my freshman year, I was just taking math and science courses and literature and that kind of stuff. And then in my sophomore year, I started taking some theater classes. And long story short, I just started taking more and more theater classes. And it was convenient because the theater department was right next to my dorm. So I just had to walk out the door, and there it was. And next thing you know, it was 4 years later, I had a theater degree. And I'm like, I guess I'm going to be an actor. So I did that. I did that for a while. Oh, I went to the University of Louisville. Go Cards. So I got my degree and found it was really, really hard to make a living in theater because it's very competitive. And long story short, I ended up getting a film and television agent, thinking I'll just expand my horizons, make myself a bit more marketable. And before I realized it, I was doing more film and TV acting than theater, so that's where I am now.
All right. And as per usual, me and Project both know this. You got your start, at least in Western television, your more notoriety as being an extra in Xena and Hercules. Some episodes we remember, some episodes we don't remember. What stories do you have to share that you can share that you haven't already told your other interviews thus far that you have?
Right. Well, I had the fortune of being actually cast as a guest, so I wasn't so much an extra in the background, but I got to play some really fun little characters in about 4 different episodes. One of the more amusing stories was probably my very first day on set. It was an episode called Vanishing Act, and a golden statue gets stolen, and it goes to this island, and the bad guy's going to melt it down. And the scene that I'm in, I'm literally right in front of this furnace that he's going to melt it down in, and they had a pipe running into it with gas, and they lit the gas and everything to kind of create a little bit of a flame. and before I realized that the set was on fire. So, uh, so everyone kind of moved away from the set, and it was an exterior set. It was like a castle set, and it was just basically, you know, cardboard and styrofoam and everything. And while they were trying to put the fire out, you know, I was off to the side thinking, this set burns down, you'll have to bring me back another day. I'll get another paycheck out of it. So that was my first day on a set, and then probably the Xena episode I'm best remembered for is an episode in season 4. It was a comedy episode, very much in the style of Monty Python, very absurd humor, you know, killer rabbits, that kind of thing. And I had gotten cast as kind of like one of the main villains in that episode. And one of my days was literally just going to be myself, Lucy Lawless, and Renee O'Connor filming. So, being a young TV actor, I was very nervous. I was like, oh, you know, how am I going to get through this? And in the one particular scene, there's Gabrielle and Xena are both sick, and they've like Xena's got lice or something, and Gabrielle, she's got some kind of virus or something, and Xena gives her this ointment or something to help her with the problem, and what Gabrielle has done is she's eaten it as opposed to actually putting it on her body. So she loses all control over her mouth. And in the scene where I go into like assassinate them, Xena knocks me out, and I'm like on my back, and Gabrielle proceeds to drool all over my face. So, and the people that have seen that, watched that episode, they've said that that drool scene was probably one of the funniest things I've ever seen. I don't know. I've gone back and watched it a few times, and I think maybe one of the reasons why it's so funny, just watching myself, I don't think I'm acting in that scene. I think I'm actually horrified that this stuff is hitting me. So we did the first take, and Renee O'Connor like bent over, and she had this like syrup in her mouth, and she just drooled the stuff, and plop, you know, just hitting me, and we finished the scene, and the director said, "Cut!" and the whole cast and crew just burst into applause and laughter, and I was just sitting there like going, "Yay, I'm a real actor now." So that was an interesting little interesting day of filming. Perhaps another. This isn't quite as amusing, but it's a story that kind of stands out in my mind. I think in the last Xena episode I was in, I was playing a reporter. It's set in modern day. I was playing a reporter, and they were getting ready to film me asking questions and taking notes and stuff. And we're about a minute away from shooting, and I pulled this pen out, and it exploded in my hand, and there was just blue ink all over me. I was just like, I got to get this off. So I run off the set, and I'm in the bathroom frantically trying to wash this stuff off, and it's not coming off. And then I hear the director crying out, like, you know, "We need you on set." I'm like, So I ran back in, and I'm not quite sure how I did it, but I somehow managed to mask my hand in a way so that you didn't quite see all the blue ink. So that was a fun little memory.
Now, the episode you said is set in modern times as a reporter. Is that the one where they're doing the whole thing about the Xena scrolls, and
exactly.
they're like, Xena had Ares' kid, and Ares just shows up and just starts throwing lightning bolts at the reporters? Is that like...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there going, man, I've seen that episode at least 3 times in the last week on Sci-Fi Channel, and I'm like, never put a... Now I'm going to go rewatch it and be like, and at that moment, that's where he hit his hand.
Yeah. So I'm at the very beginning, and I think like after I ask some questions or something, I pull out a phone and I say something like, you know, "I think we got tomorrow's big story," and that's me.
Okay, so you're the guy calling for the press conference or whatever, I think.
Well, one of the reasons you won't recognize me is I'm wearing a wig in the episode, so I look completely different.
Hey, it could be worse. You could be Michael Hurst in drag.
Fair enough.
If you know,
Sure.
there's literally a side character where he plays this
Oh yeah,
super bad.
yeah,
Yeah, it's like
yeah.
it's one of my favorite side characters he plays, where he's supposed to be like this madam of dancing and theater arts. It's like one of my favorite. I don't know why, but every time Michael Hurst is that one character where you know it's just him in drag, it leads to some of the funniest episodes of him trying to teach people how to dance dances that shouldn't even exist in ancient Greek times. Like,
Absolutely.
you should not know the Charleston. You should be Greek.
Yeah, I think that's called an anachronism, but you know.
Yeah. I mean, what is it? There's a guy called Falafel who makes a taco cart, I think.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. Project, you got the next question?
All right, so here we go. So when you began working on Power Rangers through basic auditions, how or when did it lead you to becoming an assistant director for ADR?
Right. So I've been doing voice work since 2005, and I think it was the end of. I think the last thing we had to record for Dino Charge was literally some dialogue from Snide. It was either Snide or the Mecha voice. I don't remember. I think it was Snide. And I went and had lunch with the ADR director afterwards, and he just kind of casually mentioned, just it's a tremendous workload. There's so much to do in ADR, and I just kind of said, oh well, I mean, I don't know if I could help, but next season if you need any help, just call me. Maybe I can fill in or something. So he said, oh, that's a really good idea. So he brought me in next season for Ninja Steel, and long story short, I ended up sort of becoming like the assistant ADR director, and I got to direct all of the looping, which is looping is all the background sounds. So not your main actors speaking, but like people in cafes talking, or the minion monsters, or that kind of thing. And I remember, wow, that was I've been doing looping since 2006, I think, and Ninja Steel was probably some of the hardest looping we've ever done, because in addition to like all of the regular background stuff, we had that, for lack of a better word, Coliseum in the Warrior Dome. So you had like all those thousands of monsters watching the live show, screaming and yelling, and that was, oh yeah, those were some long days. So I've been doing that since Ninja Steel, and I also got to do it this past season for Beast Morphers.
All right. Product, I accidentally hit mute on you when I went to mute myself.
Oh no! So do I need to tell all that again?
No, I muted him.
It's me.
Okay.
I went to hit mute, but my microphone hit his I went to hit my mute button, but it hit his mute button. So we heard everything you said.
Okay.
I just accidentally went to mute myself, and then it ended up muting both me and him. Okay. Anyways,
Nice.
all right. So that's how you became ADR director.
Sorry?
No, that's how you became ADR director, just to make sure that we heard you and the recording heard you.
Cool. So if for some reason you do accidentally mute me and I get caught up in telling the story, I might not be looking at the monitor. Just go like, stop.
Like, no. Okay, but anyway, with that flub, during the transition from Disney back to Saban, were there noticeable production changes for the voice acting staff, or did it remain all the same?
It pretty much remained all the same. I suspect there might have been changes in, like, the main studio, all the. It's kind of hard to explain. Like, a lot of productions, they'll have everything all on the same lot. You've got, the filming, you've got maybe an area for ADR, this, that, and the other. But for Rangers, the ADR is done in a completely different part of town. So we're just completely removed from like the main studio. And I'm guessing there would have been changes in the main studio staff and everything, maybe directing and crew. But in terms of like for the ADR, like nothing changed. In fact, if you hadn't told us there was this big change taking place, we probably wouldn't have noticed.
All right. Back to you, Project, for the next one.
So, did you prefer your time in the Neo Saban era or over Disney or vice versa? Is there a preference?
Right. Working for both companies was great. if I give an answer, it's no reflection on the other company. It's just, I think it probably for me would have been probably Neo Saban, just because I was getting to do more ongoing characters and a few more interesting characters that, you know, I really enjoyed doing. So yeah, I'd say Neo Saban.
All right, probably can keep going with number 6.
Okay. With regards to Disney, what were your thoughts when Disney was trying to cancel the franchise before Saban repurchased the series?
Right. Wow. So New Zealand is, you know, it's a small market here. You know, there's not a lot of film and television. Yes, there are a lot of projects that come here. That's no indication of, you know, that everyone's getting work. I mean, there's like, it's just like LA. You've got this many actors and you got this much work. So New Zealand has been very, very fortunate to have Power Rangers here. It's a huge chunk of, you know, our industry here. So when we found out that, you know, it was stopping after RPM, I think a lot of us were just like, whoa, what are we gonna do? You know, because for some of us, like, this is our bread and butter. So yeah, there was a bit of discomfort, and I can't remember how long it was. Maybe it was about a year and a half or something. It felt like at least a year and a half before they it got reacquired and they started up the next season. But I remember that was a really long year and a half. Just like, wow, I was needing work.
All right, so with 7, this is talking more about you coming up with all these characters. And a lot of your interviews I was watching, like, you were saying how there was ways that you would come up with voices. You wanted them to be different, such as, like, someone said Tomas was the idea of the Cheshire Cat. It was either you came up with it or someone approached you with that idea. Snide was being a bit more sadistic. I think you said Judd Lynn, Chip Lynn said Cosmo Real is supposed to be a bit of Charlie in the Box, and Scrozzle was just literally pushing that to the limit.
Yeah.
What other interesting stories do you have regarding how you came up with some of your other characters' voices in Power Rangers?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to share that. I don't know how interesting it is. You know, with it, there's been this kind of evolution with the voices. Like when I was starting out, I would look at the character and I'd try and take something from that character. Like with Tomar's, you know, he kind of had this big smile like the Cheshire Cat, so I kind of did my approximation of a Cheshire Cat voice. And then I think the next few kind of guest characters, there were little things that inspired me, like Barracuda. He had this kind of Western theme, so I tried to do, you know, something like a Clint Eastwood voice or something. Then, as we got to like other seasons, there were directions. Like they would say, okay, we think the character's kind of like this, or we think the character's kind of like that. With Megaforce, and I can't confirm this. Actually, before I tell you that part, so with Megaforce, there was something unique about that season in that they let us see the characters well in advance. Usually, you'll just like go into the studio and they show you the character, and that's the first time you're seeing it. But with Megaforce, some of us got to see the characters well in advance, and we were allowed to actually pick the characters we wanted to audition for. And the two that stood out to me were Malcor and I forgot what the other Creepox. He was one of the generals. And like when I saw Malcor, he just had this kind of majesty about him and this commanding aura and presence. And so I wanted him to sound quite regal. So I tried to do something that was very kind of kingly sounding, but also kind of menacing. And what I was told later, and again, I don't know how true this is, somebody had said that the voice I presented was apparently similar to the original voice in the Sentai footage. I don't know if that's true or not, but if it helped me get the part, I'm fine with that. So, and then as time went by, there would be like little suggestions in terms of like, we think the character is kind of like this or kind of going in this direction. And, there were times where I kind of thought, I don't know if that works for me, but I want the job. So I'm going to give them what they ask for. And then most recently, and this was a first, like what you heard about Scrozzle, he was just like, I had nothing on the day. I was like, I have no idea where I'm going to go with this voice. And it was half an hour before the audition, and I just kept pushing and pushing my voice, and finally, the voice came out, and I wasn't totally sold on it, but I just wanted to have something to present, and then turned out it worked out. I think let's see what else. Yeah, and there was a few instances where I might have gone in to do some looping, and I just got drafted. They said, like, oh, by the way, there's this monster this episode, and you're doing the voice. What? So they play it on screen, and I'll be like, oh, okay, yeah. And so I'd try and do whatever came to me, and I tried to keep them somewhat interesting. As a complete bit of trivia, and oh man, I hope I'm not going to get in trouble for saying this. And please don't ask me who. For Beast Morphers, I also auditioned for one of the Beast Bots, and I don't want to say which one, just because I don't want to suggest that the person who got cast, they were all great. I think they were all the right choices. But just as a piece of kind of trivia, like, okay, well, which one do you think maybe I would have gone for? I can't tell you. I'm sorry. So, but that would have been really cool. That would have been awesome to play, like, a bad robot and a good robot in the same season. But I'm just happy that I got to play Scrozzle.
Alrighty then. Project, take it away with the next two questions.
Sure. So, were your performance for Ripcon's voice influenced by Skeletor from the original He-Man? Because there's some similarities there after watching.
That is so funny that you asked that, because going back and listening to it later, it's kind of like, yeah, I can kind of see that. No, and I think you might be a little surprised by where the voice actually came from. So they had like a description of what they wanted for that voice, and I wasn't quite sure. I mean, I knew what they wanted, but I wasn't quite sure how I was going to go about it. So this was my process, probably the craziest process I've ever had. I started out with an Inspector Gadget voice. Then I kind of altered the pitch slightly, and then I made him just a little more nasally, and that's how I arrived at the voice for Ripcon. Now, whether it comes across that way, I don't know, but clearly I must have done something right, because it got me the part. But yeah, you're right. Looking at it now, it's kind of like, yeah, I can kind of see little elements of Skeletor there. Yeah.
All right, to the next question. So, why do you choose to give all your roles different voices, especially ones that are not villains or recurring ones? Because I know some voice actors have like a trademark voice where they voice it across like every show they're on, no matter what it is. But you do yours like differently for every role you do.
Well, I mean, there's besides just wanting to be creative and do something different and not be, viewed as only being able to do, a few voices, which, for what it's worth, I have no issue if somebody can only do 2 or 3 voices and they're great voices and they're getting work for it. That's fantastic. I would like to be like that. But but yeah, it's I guess with Power Rangers, because presently most of my voice work in terms of character work is on Power Rangers. If I was doing like lots of different voices for other shows and everything, then yeah, there's going to be a little bit of bleed over. Certain voices that I do for this show are going to sound similar to maybe a character I did 5 seasons ago on Power Rangers. But because it's all contained in the Power Rangers universe, I really don't want there to be any bleed over. I don't want somebody hearing one character and saying, oh, this just sounds like a version of that character. And so I remember after I did, when I saw the very first episode of Beast Morphers, the first episode where Scrozzle appears, I listened to the angry voice that I was doing for him, and I thought, oh, that sounds a little too much like another character on this series. So I made an adjustment, and I kind of pulled the voice back so it wasn't as prominent for the rest of the series. But I just take a lot of pride and just kind of trying to come up with a completely different and unique voice for every monster. And you know, I'm going to run out of voices eventually. So, yeah, who knows? Maybe this will be my final season, and then I'll move on to other pastures.
All right. So this actually, our next question is something that dates back to when we were actually scheduling the interview. And one of the things we were talking about was we were talking really about how Cosmo Royale is where you kind of realized you wanted to actually invest more time into the not just the legacy of the franchise, but its actual fandom. That's when you became more active on social media. We've seen you interacting with the fans and whatnot. Do you think the character's exuberance and theatrical antics that you were talking about, not just publicly but in other interviews in general, is like what kind of won you over? Was there something else entirely? Like, was it just the character, or was there just like a weird click where you came to like this huge revelation that like, yo, what's going on here?
That's a good question, because I'd never really thought of it in those lights in that light before. There was just something about Cosmo that just, now that I think about it, it just clicked. And there was just something, I guess because I'd come from a background of just doing all these kind of horrible monsters, and now suddenly I'm doing this kind of fun, frolicking, likable, There was just something very liberating about that. And watching him on the screen, and I say this in almost every interview I do, whatever you saw Cosmo doing on screen when I was recording the voice, that's probably what I was doing in the voice. I mean, doing in the booth. So it was very big and animated, and I suppose if I didn't have that physical freedom, I probably wouldn't have been able to produce the voice. Yeah, and around that time, I was becoming more aware of the fandom. I mean, I knew it existed, but I don't know, for some reason, it just wasn't real to me. And I think that's partly because most of my career, I've tried to kind of remain in the shadows. I don't really want to be famous. I don't think I'm that interesting to talk to anyway. But it's now that I'm starting to discover I'm part of this bigger community. I sort of feel like, yeah, I need to plug into that community and get to know everyone better and enjoy their company and enjoy their passion for this series. And I said this the other day in an interview, and unfortunately the last part of the interview got cut off, so it never made it. But one of the things about Power Rangers, the Power Rangers fandom, is, I mean, you got the Star Wars, you got Star Trek, and I love all those franchises and everything. You got Marvel Universe, DC, etc. But I've watched so many videos, fan content, from Power Rangers fans and conventions and Power Morphicon, and there's just something I see in the fandom for Power Rangers I don't see anywhere else. I'm not trying to take away from the commitment and passion that maybe people have for Star Wars or Star Trek, but just with Power Rangers, there's just like this love and devotion that I just don't see anywhere else. And I'm sure that in a way that's kind of contributed to my wanting to be part of the fandom.
So as like a small follow up to that, would you believe that one of the things that you're saying why you see this thing in the fandom, could it be, this is just I guess my assumption, and you could agree with the opinion or you could say it is a valid opinion, do you think it's also because it is one of the more juvenile fandoms, not juvenile in the sense of how the fans act and how they are, but because it's still a fresh fandom, it's a very niche fandom, it's not mainstream like, say, your Star Trek or your Star Wars, or now how Marvel, because even though Marvel movies have only been out a decade, the comics have been around for almost 80 years for these characters. So is it that because Power Rangers is only almost 30 years old versus some of these other Western properties. It's another reason why you were allured by it was that there's a community of people fighting for its legitimacy.
Mm. Yeah, no, I think that's a really valid point. And who would have thought nearly 30 years later? I mean, just it's amazing. Like this show has had so many ups and downs, and then it was going to get canceled, and then it came back, and it's just so. And I just don't see that in the other fandoms. I just think the fandom for Power Rangers it's really special. It's really quite amazing, and I feel privileged to be a part of it. I still haven't done my first convention yet, but I have a feeling that the full weight of it will hit me after I do my first convention.
All right. So besides your main villain roles, is there a specific monster of the week that you have taken pride in performing, or is there like one that you really enjoyed either for the story and significance or design that they had in its individual season?
Right. I suppose in a weird way, because I wouldn't call this like a recurring character. He was in 3 episodes, but I kind of really enjoyed Rhinoceros from Samurai. I seem to recall that was the first character I did where I really sort of had fun with the character. There was something kind of a little dramatic about him, or at least that's how I tried to portray him. Maybe a lesser monster that, then again, going back to an earlier conversation, this was one I was just drafted to do. I'd gone in to do some looping work, and they said, "Oh, by the way, you're going to be voicing the Greenzilla." I was like, "Oh, okay." So I saw what he looked like. I was like, "Oh, okay, all right, I can do that." So I'd have to go back and listen to it again to remember, what he sounded like. I seem to recall liking the voice that I came up with. But yeah, I enjoyed voicing the Greenzilla. And I suppose I don't know if this really counts. I strangely enjoyed doing the mecha voice, the call out in Dino Charge. And
Yeah, because you're the morpher, right?
Morpher, exactly. And it was just nice. It was just like, oh, I can just do my regular voice. I don't have to straighten your voice or anything. So that was enjoyable.
Since you brought up the Greenzilla for a quick second,
Right.
were you aware of what it really was in Koyuger? That it was actually evolutionary stage of the main villain, and were you kind of sad that like Sledge or yourself, like Sledge didn't either transform into him, or that the Greenzilla itself never turned into his true like Wizard of Oz-esque form?
Oh no, I didn't know that.
Yeah, the Greenzilla is actually called Master Daboth, and he's supposed to be the main villain of Koryuger,
Okay.
and he morphs into like this Wizard of Oz-esque being after being fused with Chaos, the priest guy, for a short period of time after they destroyed the Greenzilla. And then,
Wow.
ironically, you find out the creator of the Daboth comes back in the Tokyuger crossover movie.
Cool.
It's like a crazy continuity. So if you ever get the time to go back and watch it, it's something to check out.
Awesome.
The last question I'm going to do for the next couple of minutes, and then I'm passing it over to Project, is number 12. So this question I want to ask, because this is another thing that we also talked about in our prep meeting, because we had like a nice, good 30-minute hour chat just about Power Rangers and community and stuff like that. So in this little discussion, we were talking about how you had obviously binged majority of Power Rangers, and I think you said at the time that you began doing interviews, you were somewhere around the end of Wild Force or into Dino Thunder almost. It was somewhere around there. I remember you mentioning, and you did in your interview with I believe they're called like Basub Force on YouTube. You said that Time Force really stood out to you as one of your top series, like, as one of the ones that you think is one of the best. But this question is kind of either you can choose one or the other. It's are there other series that stand out to you, or in like few sentences, like whether it's like one sentence or two sentence, what good thing can you say about each season of Power Rangers, either in a sentence or whatnot? I feel like that's a trick question that you'd be like, I would love to do that one day, but not now.
I'd love to do that one day, but not now. But no. So some highlights for me. So yes, going back to that interview, I had seen Time Force about 2.5, 3 years ago. No, it was 3. Oh no, I think it was probably 2015. And then about 1.5 years ago, I just felt like, I got to get caught up. So I just binged everything from Mighty Morphin through to the one after Ninja Storm, the one with the Tommy comes back as a teacher.
Dino Thunder.
Dino. Thank you. Yes. And oh, my mind's going. So I binged all that and had a great time. And there were a few things that really stood out. There was obviously, I think the one that everyone likes to praise is In Space, because they just kind of like, they took some serious risks with that show. I mean, just in terms of the storytelling, and some really good storytelling there that I quite enjoyed. I'm also man, I know I'm going to be in the minority here. I'm actually a fan of Ninja Storm, and I know it's like
I don't never hear anything bad about Ninja Storm.
We like Ninja Storm.
Like, not their most favorite, but and to be fair, okay, the villain isn't that threatening, but there's so many things about that season that I liked. I mean, I loved the fact that the villain was just this kind of campy, almost Batman-esque, villain. He had some one-liners that just had me burst out laughing. And I loved all the scheming with the nieces, and I liked the Rangers. And I was strangely, while I wasn't the biggest fan of Lost Galaxy, there were certain things in Lost Galaxy that I quite liked. And for me, one of the more surprising moments was when the death of Scorpius and Trakina at his side. And it's just like this really heartfelt, like her father's dying, and you're just like, oh gosh, this is really sad. And you're like, hold on, these are the villains. Why am I feeling sorry for this person? So that was really well done. And again, not the biggest fan of this particular season, but there was some really nice stuff in Lightspeed Rescue. And in my personal view, the cliffhanger in the second to last episode was the best cliffhanger I've ever seen in the series. I was just like, wow, that's stupendous. So for me, those are a few of the highlights from some of the shows. And I better not say any more, because they're probably going to be answers to your follow-up questions.
Yeah, there probably is, because I have a feeling that, like, already just asking you thoughts on when you said Lost Galaxy, I'm like, someone's gonna have a crossbow aimed at us going, what? He didn't like Lost Galaxy?
Galaxy? What is this?
Like all of a sudden you see everyone like with guns and shotguns outside our window. Hey, we're just the guys conducting the interview. We're not Campbell Cooley. Get those guys.
There was a lot of stuff about Lost Galaxy that I liked. All the stuff with the pirates, I didn't like that. But apart from that, like I said, there was a lot of stuff that I liked about it. I kind of liked the kind of Battlestar Galactica-esque, being chased by the enemy, and
Well, if you ever get a chance, ask Judlin about all the production issues with that show. I mean, I've read about it in the books, I've heard about it from the actors, but he seems to know more than what everyone else has, and he still won't talk about it.
Alrighty.
Because there's this urban legend out on the internet, for if you don't know, at Power Morphicon, where all the actors said, yeah, Judd actually almost bankrupted Saban with that season. That's an urban legend that the actors and like anyone that's associated with that season have said at conventions. They're going, and I think even the book allocates that. Yeah, we almost went bankrupt with that one season alone because they tried to do so much stuff.
A lot of hearsay, but not confirmed.
Yeah, it's like here are the facts that back up our proof, but we don't have the checks.
Solid.
Yeah, like here are all the, because like there's one fact that we do know is that when they were doing In Space, it was going to be the end, and so they didn't tell Toei to start sending the suits for Ginga Man, and that's why they had to use the Mega Ranger villain for the first 15 episodes. Furio, that red guy, was actually the Mega Ranger villain. And then they're like, oh, we got the suits for Ginga Man, so yay.
All right.
Yeah, you take
to the next question, 13.
Yeah.
So in previous interviews, you were asked who's your favorite Red Ranger or leader. So you mentioned Wes from Wes. Yet we want to know who is your favorite sixth or extra hero, or your favorite villain or villain faction in a series.
Easy to answer. My favorite sixth Ranger, Cam from Ninja Storm. I love Cam. I just thought he's awesome. I mean, what more is there to say? He's just awesome. And in terms of villains, Villamax. I love villains that have a sense of honor about them. And I kind of really like the fact that Villamax kind of, I don't know if you'd call it a redemption, but, you know, when he saved that little girl in that battle, and then she's like, oh, thank you, and she gives him the flowers, and he's just kind of like touched, and he's like, I can't keep doing this. And then he turns on Trakina. I loved that. It just made it all the more tragic when she defeated him. And oh man, I'll never forget that shot, that ground shot where Villamax is dying and he's kind of reaching out and she just stomps on the flowers the girl gave him, and you're just like, oh.
And you know what's? Do you know the irony in that? His Ginga Man counterpart is a like old school Bancho-esque biker gang guy, like Japanese biker. He's like making all the weird quirks and the jokes, and he does a lot of like dirty tactic stuff. There's times where like he's like saying a wise ass crack, and he'll look back and think one of the other generals is about to hit him in the back of the head, like he's like paranoid and stuff. So it's just so funny how they took like a kind of comedic badass that is killed off in the beginning of the show. They get his suit late for the adaptation, and they make him the most standout character, and I think all of the villains. Like, there's other standout villains for sure.
Yeah,
but
they're
like in the Saban era for sure. It's like him and Rancic just stand out as like the ultimate.
Yeah, I love Rancic. I also this is probably answering a previous question. My favorite crossover is the Wild Force crossover where Rancic is redeemed. I loved that. I just thought that was amazing. So yeah, anything to do with a villain who has some kind of sense of honor, I love that. Or maybe some kind of personality quirk that kind of goes against being a villain. And just doing a plug here for Scrozzle. I love the fact that Scrozzle seemed to have this kind of sense of politeness about him. Like, so if you didn't say thank you, it was like, oh, how dare you not say thank you? So, anyway.
Yeah, I think that's in one of the recent episodes that actually just aired too, the infamous line where someone was like, Scrozzle, do it. And he's like, what do you say? And Blaze won't do it. And so Roxy's just like, now please. And he's like, better.
Oh my god. Wheelz, I think you need to tell Campbell your Vernon Wells story from the Power Morphicon we were at.
Oh yeah, we have a very funny Vernon Wells story. I don't think we've mentioned it in the existence of Los Inglenobles de Tokusatsu, our podcast on YouTube that's been in hiatus for a good year now, but
sorry.
Sorry people who actually like that show. But there's a Vernon Wells story that when me and Project went to 2012, we go up to his booth, and a lot of the actors at the time, they would have like these little index cards or like these little plaques that would say how much for a photo, how much for this. And like he had already set up everything. Like you could tell he's done setting up. But he didn't seem to have an actual price sheet like everyone else. So we just kind of come over and we're looking at his stuff. And he's like, so what you guys want? And we're like, possibly an autograph, maybe a photo with you. And he's like, and I'm like, so how much does it cost, sir, since you don't seem to have a price? And he goes, might cost with your life. And he brings out his prop sword from the show. But the thing is, he has all of his filmography from Mad Max to Power Rangers to the ironic thing that he shouldn't have had, Commando. Man. And it's the scene. And I go, what about a pipe through the chest? He goes, all right then. I'll give you guys a slight discount then for a photo and autograph. so Project takes the offer immediately. And I think, what is it? You take a photo with him, and then Rance the sword, puts it around Project's throat while he's holding him like this, and I'm the one taking the photo, going, "Hey, it's not me, at least. It's not me." And then he's also friends with Ron Roget, who played Captain Mitchell from Lightspeed Rescue, and Ron Roget's just standing there, and we're like looking at him, and Ron Roget actually has like the scar on his face, but it's on the but me and Prada kept remembering it on the wrong side, so as we're looking at this guy, we're like, "Who is this guy?" And then he turns and then he puts his finger up like this, and we're like, "Oh."
He shaved his mustache.
Yeah.
That's why.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
he shaved his mustache, and the scar was on the opposite side. And he had not even set up his booth because it was Friday early access, and he didn't even set up anything yet. He just came in like wearing a Hawaiian shirt, shorts. Just came in to say hi, look for a table to set up or whatever. Just came in as you are.
It was
Great.
hot.
It was a hot day.
I really hope I can meet Vernon Wells one day. I just he's so awesome.
Oh yeah, no, he's a very mad, chill man. He's a lot more. He's one of these ones where I've met him at another convention, and he's like, in the first one he tries to act very stern, badass still, but now he's like that old grandpa stern, laid back, where he just sits there. It's like it makes you feel very Clint Eastwoody, where he's just sitting there like, and he's just like, you're like, "Oh, he looks nice." And then he comes up and then he just like gives you like this eyebrow, and you're like, "Yep, it's still Vernon Wells. He still can kick my ass." Like, I'm just expecting him to like grab me with that fake plastic arm that was like supposed to be his mutant arm, and just like choke slam me like he's Big Show.
Or backhand you with it.
Yeah, just like,
Wow.
"Hey, I'm gonna make you pretend you're Wes's dad."
Let's go back on topic. All right, here we go.
If he can pull a sword out of his leg, I'll be really impressed.
That'd be cool, but that would hurt though.
Oh yeah.
All right, so let's go back on topic. So, question 14. What are your opinions on the source material, Super Sentai, with the series nearly being 50 years, almost 50 years in Japan?
Right. Okay, so I might give a slightly disappointing answer. Well, I say disappointing in the sense that, you know, I've watched almost no Sentai, so I don't feel like I'm qualified to respond. But I did, and I realize this isn't quite the same thing,
Yeah.
and I'm showing my age here, but I can remember watching Ultraman in 1972
Yes.
and being just like, wow, this is so cool. So, you know, I have nothing but admiration for any show that can be on that long. And, you know, just props to them, just amazing. And I really wish I had more time to kind of delve into, you know, some of the old Sentai and watch a few. There's a few I am going to definitely make an effort to watch, but I just don't feel like I'm qualified because I haven't really watched the series. But I totally respect the appeal of it, and yeah, I'm just grateful that I get to kind of come in at the tail end and do something associated with it, even if only like after the fact, you know.
So, since you brought up Ultraman, you sure you don't work with Starlight Runner or Super Eye? You sure about this? We're not going to get interrupted by them. Okay,
No.
good to know. It's good
5
to know.
seconds later,
Yeah,
ring, ring.
Oh, I gotta go. Like, wait, what?
All
You said you didn't know them.
All right. Ryan, if you can hear this, edit this out. Wheels, we need to give this man copies of the Sentai movies.
Oh yeah, just send them all the TV Nihon subs, all the TV Nihon, especially since the marketing uses the subs for all the commercials. If you don't know this, TV Nihon subs have been used for like every Power Ranger ad in existence for like the last 5 years, like
Right.
ever since Neo Saban. TV Nihon ads. I don't know why, but okay.
But by the official release, people.
By the official
this
release.
goes on record.
But it won't go on record. We'll make
This is
sure
for research. This is for research.
Okay, so product. Pick up with the next one.
Let's see here. Question 15. When you were previously asked about watching Super Sentai, you mentioned you'd like to see more of it for comparison's sake. However, are there any specific reasons about the franchise that pique your curiosity? Anything specific that kind of catches your eye?
There is one. I mean, I'm sure that there's probably more than one, but there's one that just stands out, and I know I'm gonna butcher the pronunciation, so I'm not even gonna try to. The one with the trains.
Resha Sentai Tokuger.
Yes. There's something really intriguing about that. I mean, I don't know how you would adapt that for an American market, but knowing how big train culture is in Japan, I'm fascinated by that. and I do have a kind of fascination with trains. So, yeah, I'd love to see that, and I'm sure I will come away from it most gratified.
Now watch our comments going to be adapt. Russian Sentai Tokyuger Hasbro, do it, you cowards. Campbell decrees it, and then there's going to be there's gonna be the opposite party that's going, we want Q Ranger, and then the other guys going, we want Juoger, and then it's just a civil war on Twitter as usual.
Oh, now that I think about it, with Q Ranger, I think I can see him voicing what's the robot Bison, the wrestler?
If Q Ranger, Champ.
Actually, yeah, that would be cool.
Actually, I think Campbell would voice Balance better though.
You think?
Yeah, he'd be the better voice for Balance, the Gold Thief, if he did a Q Ranger. Whereas if Tokyuger got brought over, as an in-joke, since Cosmo Royale is the Baron Nero suit, just have you voice Baron Nero with like a very British stock faux pas or even like a French accent. It works perfectly.
I was saying this in another interview recently, and unfortunately, we got cut off, so it didn't make it into the interview. At least I don't think it did. But I have this theory, like I would love for them to somehow bring back Cosmo. I just love doing Cosmo. But because the last shot we saw of him was a grenade heading right at him and exploding. Not quite sure how good he will look. So my theory would be like, well, let's put the Baron Nero voice on him, and that's the damage that was done to him after the grenade went off. But it's still, it's still
like the old medicine mask, that. It don't make sense. It's like, his face is scarred because it's like the whole old school of why the mask was wearing was to avoid lepus. I forget, was it lupus? Lepus? I forget what the disease was.
The Black Plague.
Yeah, Black Plague. So like that would make perfect sense. And like that, and now because of the scarring, he's not as flamboyant or exaggerant or exuberant. But then there's times where it still leaks out where he forgets. He's like, and I'm supposed to be a scarred, mentally unstable person now. But like, because if you don't know, there's a scene where like they start doing a roll call, and Baron Nero's like, I'm gonna do a Sentai roll call, and they just stop and look at him and they're like, no, stop, man. All right, so what was the next one?
16.
Yeah. Okay. And this one's more of a opinion because, like, since you said Nick's the last question, this one is actually just what is your advice and opinions regarding the fandom's weird little niche civil war when it comes over purism of Sentai versus Power Rangers? Because this was actually brought up just recently. If you saw the recent tweet of how it was and how it's going with that tweet on Twitter, and always there's this weird hate Super Sentai and Power Rangers. So what's your take on that?
Right. Yeah, it's Yeah, it's kind of hard to answer. I mean, I love the passion. I love the fact that people are that passionate about this series, and I respect that. And I suspect there's probably some things in my certain shows and everything that I've watched in the past that maybe I was a bit of a purist about. But it's the thing with Power Rangers is that there's something for everybody. And not every season is going to make everyone happy. There's going to be some seasons that you like that other people don't, and vice versa. And I just say, you know what? Just enjoy the seasons that you enjoy. And, don't fault anybody for liking another season. Just, let's just enjoy it. So.
All right, yeah, because that's one of the things I thought. Because I always see people either hating on Power Rangers versus Power Rangers and Sentai versus Sentai. And I think when it comes to the adaptation, there's some right to be mad at an adaptation in some regards, but I don't think every Power Rangers adaptation deserves flack, and I don't think that people should say. This is me. I always find it weirder when American fans that for a fact found Sentai due to Power Rangers become Sentai purists. That makes no sense to me. It's like, how do you retroactively go, all Power Rangers is crap? And I'm like, but you grew up for 10 years watching Power Rangers, and now you're saying this Sentai is better than this one when the Power Rangers series was actually the better.
It's like apples and oranges, but the thing is they're both fruit, so they're both good. So it's just a matter of which one you like.
Right.
Yeah. For example, I tell people this all the time. If you took the villains of Geki Ranger and the villains of Jungle Fury, you'd have the perfect show. Because I always found the Geki Rangers boring, but I found the Jungle Fury Ranger team more animated and had better depth of character, whereas the villains, not the actors themselves, it's not their fault. They were actually pretty good actors. They just had stilted dialogue to work with. versus the story of who actually played, Jared, Daishi, and Camille in the Japanese one. They had like this huge, massive story arc where it's like we're only villains because we're really just a rival school teaching the dark arts, even though the dark arts don't mean we have to kill. It's just we just do it's like how Cobra Kai is supposed to be seen now. It's just like we do underhand tactics, but we don't straight up just kill people. It's like that. So it's like two rival schools, and that's like you take those guys, you fuse them with these guys. That's a perfect show. It's harmony. You need sometimes the adaptation fixes certain flaws that you see in the Sentai. It's one of those weird cases. There's certain times where they just copy and paste it, and it's actually a little bit better. And then there's times where it's a little bit worse. I'm not naming names.
Well, I'm just grateful for all the work I've been able to contribute, and it's been a very humbling experience. And I'm kind of embarrassed to say I don't fully appreciate what I'm involved with, because obviously, when the show came out, I was already in my 20s, so it wasn't a show that I would have watched. But I've just now having been such a part of it for so long, and seeing the fandom from afar, it's just like, wow, I just can't think of a better franchise to be a part of. So thank you for watching the show. Thank you for your interest in my small contribution, and I can't thank you enough for having me on your show.
Yeah, we thank you for joining us too for this interview, because we've had this amazing stride this year. So every time we keep getting new guests, it's always like a different story, a different take, a different era. I mean, you start off with Metalder, you get Michael Hollander of VR Troopers, and now we're jumping all the way to the present era of like Tokusatsu and stuff. So it's like we've kind of checked off quite a lot of goals. So for having you on, it helps bring up like past, present adaptations, original source, and no, it's a good thing to have people like you who want to talk with us for preservation in case something happens to people. Like, you never know. Neil Kaplan said Neil Kaplan, voice actor who was Diabolico in Lightspeed Rescue, said to us in our interview, you never know what tomorrow has, and you never know who's going to be there the next day. So it's like one day there could be an accident. Not saying to you, but someone else or someone else in this franchise. And what they know could be gone because they didn't have these interviews or they didn't write them down to tell people. And this is an art form, even in Japan. So it's like, once it's fully CG or it's all animated or whatever you want to do with it at the end of the day, like, you need to have people talking with you, conversing with you, asking you, what was it like working on this show when it was still with, real people, suits, no motion capture, stuff like that, all that jazz. So, like, I appreciate just doing this. And you're going, I appreciate not just the fans, but the people who want to know this. So, yeah, no, it's like, I feel it's like a great symbiotic relationship when you get to do stuff like this.
Well, thank you again for having me. It's a real honor to be able to chat with you too, and to be on your show. And I look forward to doing this again at some point in the future.
Yeah, when we can be more discrepant.
At a convention in person.
Oh yeah, that too. Yeah, that too. At a convention in person. But yeah, no, because we got to talk about, we got to unpack all that Beast Morpher stuff that's bound to come, and we got to ask you some more stuff about other plot twists that have occurred in previous seasons that you've probably been a part of. Going, what? We're gonna do this? Really? So great. So we ended off with, we'll have him back at a future date. He thanks us all. We thank him. Power Rangers great. It's good. We're all happy. And I guess we should do quick outros. So, Mr. Cooley, do you have anything you need to promote, like any like shows or other stuff people can check out that you need to give promotion to?
Right. I'm not, obviously I wouldn't be allowed to talk about anything I'm doing right now, but if you want to check me out from time to time, you can find me at Twitter at Campbell Cooley. And I recently opened my only Instagram account, and it's just Real Campbell Cooley. And if you don't remember Real Campbell Cooley, just go to my Twitter account. There'll be a link to it there.
Following you right now.
Oh. Probably like, I've seen his tweets. I forgot to follow his tweets and whatnot. All right. So, anyways, for Project, I guess tell people how they can follow you.
I'm wherever you are, dude.
Yeah, exactly. Which is on Twitter. So you can check us out on Twitter at Project RDM. Or no, is it Project One? Project
I don't
One.
even know anymore, man. I
Yeah,
don't use
you
Twitter
don't
as
use
much.
Twitter as much anymore. But I'm Wheelchair21. He's Project RDM or Project One. You'll probably find him. If it shows that I'm following him, then that's the right one you're supposed to be following. As for Hero Club, you can always check out all of our content at hero-club.com, where we're followed across social media, whether it be Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I think I got it all. And it's at Hero Club for Life. Hero for Life. And the 4 is actually the number. Just don't worry about it, people. You're good. Great. It'll be in the description below. We'll see you all next time with whoever our next guest may be. Hopefully it's someone who doesn't say they have to be interrupted by Subaraya Productions.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, thanks a lot.
Cheers.